Hi guys, I'm Jessica and this is Dan and we are the Pajama CEOs and today we're going to be talking to you about state taxes.
Yes, I'm really excited to be talking to you about this today. And this is going to be, there's a lot of math involved in today's discussion, but I want you guys to stick with me. This is going to be very important for you if you're living in a high-tax state. This video is intended for people making over $100,000 a year, living in California, Illinois, or New York. If you fit those criteria, if you're making a good amount of money and you're living in a high-tax state, but yet you're struggling to save money and get ahead, I'm going to show you why there's only one reason for that and why your financial problems are simpler than you think. State taxes are really the only reason why you're struggling to save. Now, of course, there's other things you can do besides, moving to a lower tax state to improve your financial situation and to start a business. But I will say that state taxes are making a much bigger impact than a lot of people think in these higher tax states. And just by moving to a bigger state, you can really change your whole financial situation in your life.
Taxes are 5 to 10% of what we make for income. Why is it so important?
That's a really good point because that's the way that most people think about it. Most people think, I'm only paying like 5% or 10%. I make $200,000 a year if I only have to pay like $15,000 in tax. Is that really that big of a deal? And it doesn't seem like a big of a deal if you think of it as a percentage of your income. But I'm going to show you in this video why that is not the correct way to think about it. What I feel is the correct way to think about it is to think about it as a percentage of your savings that the state government is taking. And this is a very, very important distinction. I did some research before doing this video, and I found out that the average U.S. savings rate is about 8%. In California, if you're making about $200,000 a year, you'll be paying about, an average rate of 8%. So there's two ways to think about this. They are taking about 8% of your income. Another way to think about this, though, is you're taking 100% or nearly 100% of your savings. And we all know how money compounds, so really this is going to have a drastic impact over the course of your lifetime, much bigger than most people think. All right, so let's run through the math if you're living in a high-tax state. Let's say that you're a fairly well-to-do couple. You're not exactly balling out of control, but you're making $200,000 a year. Maybe, a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. So you're making a pretty good income. I know a lot of you guys who aren't making that kind of income right now, you're probably thinking, if I was making $200,000, it'd be easy to save. Like, it'd be no problem. But you'd be surprised. When you're a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, there is a lot of pressure to buy a nice car and a nice house. If you have a family, in California, on this kind of income, after all the taxes and things that you're going to be paying, you're only taking home about $100,000. So a lot of people with this kind of income in California are really struggling to get ahead. So let's imagine you're in that kind of situation. You're taking home $200,000. If you're saving at the average American rate, you're going to be saving $16,640 per year, and that's the average American savings rate of 8.32%. So let's say, theoretically, if you weren't paying any state taxes, you just save at the average rate, and you invest in mutual funds. We're going to talk later about why mutual funds are not the best investment. They compound. I think a reasonable rate to expect a mutual fund to compound that would be 7%. But if you put that money into your own business, it can compound at 100 or 200 or 300%. I know some people's belief systems are not quite there yet, where they think they can get 100% return on their money. So we'll just stick with the most conservative possible assumptions. You're just investing in boring mutual funds that compound at 7% per year. And to make it even more conservative, we're also going to, this number also accounts for inflation at 2% per year. So let's say you're saving at the average rate, you're saving about $16,000 per year. That's going to translate after 30 years of compounding into about $1.4 million of savings. Again, that's assuming that amount of savings per year and a 7% annual return and a 2% inflation rate, which I feel is extremely conservative assumptions. But let's imagine you're in California. If you were in California, you'd be paying $15,888 in California state taxes. And I'm going to put the links to the calculators in the descriptions that I use to get all these numbers, so you guys can check it out for yourself. So let's say if you were living in California and you were saving at the average rate except for state taxes, you would only be saving $1,000 per year after tax. So that's a savings rate of 0.52%. With the same assumptions, you put the excess money into mutual funds. It compounds at 7% per year, 2% inflation rate. You're only going to end up with $90,840 after 30 years. So the difference over 30 years is $1,306,704, about $1.3 million in difference over 30 years. So you can see under a scenario like this, state taxes are costing you much more than you think. You shouldn't think about it like they're taking 5 to 10% of my income. You should think about it like they're taking $1.3 million over the course of my lifetime and nearly 100% of my savings. Now, if you're in this scenario right now, you could tremendously benefit from moving to a low tax state like Texas, but that's actually there's actually people who are going to benefit even more than that, and we're going to show you that scenario now.
So for the person who's not saving anything, how can they benefit from this?
If you're saving a little bit living in California, you're going to benefit a lot from, moving to a no income tax state. But the person who's really going to benefit the most is the high income earner who can't save anything in California or New York or Illinois, and is going into debt a little bit each year. So let's imagine you're in that kind of same scenario. You've got a family, you're making $200,000 a year, but maybe you've got kids in college and things like that. You can't make ends meet. And you're not going into debt that much, but let's say every year you have a negative 3% savings rate, so you're going into debt about $6,000 per year. This is not unrealistic assumptions at all for people living in California. This would basically mean like taking out a new car loan once every 5 years, getting into credit card debt once in a while. There's a lot of people making incomes like this that are in this kind of situation, but they don't really, again, calculate what the difference would be if they had the money to pay off that debt. Let's say if you continue going into debt $6,000 per year for 30 years, it would very quickly become an unsustainable situation. So the assumptions I use to make these calculations are a little bit different. Again, I assume the 2% inflation rate. With the debt, I'm assuming a 15% interest rate. And I feel that'd be a pretty good assumption for people with a mix of credit card debt, car loans, and mortgages, that you're paying about 15% on this debt. So you go into debt $6,000 per year. Over 30 years, if they don't foreclose on you by then, you're going to end up with about $2.2 million in debt. $2.2 million, and really this understates it because you're probably not going to be able to take out this much debt. So realistically, if you keep this going, you're eventually going to go into bankruptcy, and you're going to be forced to make a change. So if you're in California right now, you can't see how to get a way out of it. There's a very easy way out of this for you. Move to Texas or another no tax state. The savings from that on your $200,000 income are going to be $15,888 per year. Let's imagine you have a shortfall of $6,000 per year that requires you to take out debt, but now you have almost $16,000 in effortless money that comes your way just by moving to Texas. So now this means rather than going to debt $6,000 per year, just by moving to Texas, changing nothing else, you could save almost $10,000 per year, right? Versus going into debt $6,000 per year. Now, it doesn't sound like that much when you put it on a one-year basis, but the difference between $10,000 in savings and $6,000 in debt is astronomical when compounded. Let's say if you did have that savings of about $10,000 per year. Again, using our same assumptions for investments, compounding at a 7% rate, it compounds to about $524,000 after 30 years. Accounting for the debt that you're not taking out and the $500,000 in savings, state taxes are costing you about $2.7 million over 30 years, right? So if you're in California, if you're in New York, and you're slightly going into debt right now, I really want you to think about this math. State taxes are not just costing you 5 to 10%. They're costing you nearly $3 million over your lifetime. It's the difference between wealth and poverty, these state taxes here, and I feel by thinking about it this way, you can really get right in your mind, and you can be keeping that $3 million for yourself.
But I mean, even so, Dan, I mean, $10,000 that a new business owner, or even a business owner who's been doing something for a long time, $10,000 that you can invest in your business is an amazing way to go about this,
Exactly. And so the reason why I assume that you're going to invest all the savings in mutual funds is because I know a lot of people's belief systems aren't such that, they think they can take $10,000, put in their business, and turn it into $1 million. This kind of math would just like blow your mind if I use the assumptions of, you're putting the money into your business. But that's a very excellent point, though. These numbers are understated because they assume you're only going to invest in mutual funds. If you invest in something better, then obviously the difference is going to be more. Okay, so I ran you through a few common scenarios for high income earners in California and New York. But of course, you're going to have your own calculation to make. And I encourage you not to just use these generic numbers, to use your own numbers. What I want you to do is to click on the link in the description, or tap on the annotation that's about to appear on this video, just like that. I'll show you the calculators that I use to get to these numbers. I use a calculator on bankrate.com to calculate retirement savings, and on smartasset.com to calculate California state taxes. So California state taxes are completely cut and dry. The investment savings, though, do rely on some assumptions, so you can plug in your own assumptions to that. So I encourage you to go there, plug in your own numbers now, and see how many millions of dollars you're going to make over your lifetime by moving to a no-tax state.
All right, Dan. So are these numbers really realistic, though?
I feel that not only are these numbers realistic, they're actually drastically understated. And the only reason why I use these assumptions is because they're extremely conservative, just to show there is no possible justification for living in a high-tax state. The reason why I feel these are realistic is for a couple reasons. Number one, as you pointed out before, these numbers are assuming you're investing in one of the worst possible investments, mutual funds, and earning a miserable 7% return per year. In the later videos, we're going to show you how you can earn a 50 or 100 or a 200% return and how that will become realistic and really blow that number up. Number two, these numbers do not account for differences in cost of living, and low tax states tend to have a much lower cost of living than high tax states. For example, in California, you know, like a nice house is going to cost you upwards of $1 million. But here in Texas, you can get a nice house for $300,000 or $400,000. None of that's accounted for here. The third reason why this is realistic is because this is only accounting for one kind of tax. And as anyone who lives in California knows, there's many kinds of tax they hit you with. The gas tax and tolls, even factors such as like increased commuting and having to use your car more. There's so many other taxes that go into this. I feel this 2.7 represents the bare minimum possible that you're going to save. Probably you're going to be saving more by moving to a no-tax state.
But, I mean, aren't taxes good? Like, aren't they a good thing? Like, don't they help out the United States? And, like, isn't that, like, what citizens should do?
There is a lot of people who think that, and there's a lot of people who are aware of this math, but they still think, you know, like I'm a pretty wealthy person, and, you know, I should help other people out who aren't as fortunate, and I should support our state government because they help a lot of people out. But what I want to let you guys know about is that it doesn't really work like that. What I feel the way that high-tax states use this extra money for is essentially to buy votes. Pro-tax politicians, what they do is, their agenda is to get reelected. So what they do is they start on social programs and wealth redistribution programs, which are intended to make them more popular and get them more votes. Once they get more votes, obviously what they're going to do is pass more programs like this. It doesn't really work like it would like with a business or with a person. You would think, you know, if there's a person who needs some help and I give them maybe like $10,000 a year, now they got food and they got stuff and now their needs are taken care of. Doesn't work like that. The more money that you give a socialist government, the more money that they're going to want. So, you know, over time, it's just making things worse for other people. You're not really helping anybody by paying these state taxes, is what I want to let you know. Not only are you not helping people, you're hurting your fellow entrepreneurs because you're giving a high-tax government more power over them. So by paying these taxes, you're not doing any good and you're actually doing a lot of harm. So think about that moral angle in addition to your personal financial gain when you're thinking about this move.
So all these numbers sound really amazing, even to me. But for a lot of people, I know it's really hard to like leave your family and friends.
I mean, it is extremely hard, and the reason why I know that is that I used to live in Massachusetts, which was a very high-tax state, but when we decided to start this business, you know, partially because of this math and also for a few other reasons, I decided to move to Texas. So I know it can be really hard to leave all your friends behind, to leave your family back behind in your home state, and to leave everything that you're used to, but I want to tell you guys, it is so worth it. It's worth it for a few reasons. When you have access to this kind of money, when you're not in debt, you're just going to be a much happier person, and you're going to have more free time. You're going to be able to enjoy more quality time with your family and your friends, ironically, even if you're not living there. The reason for that is even if you fly back up there 5 or 6 or 7 times a year, you're still sitting on significant millions of dollars in savings over your lifetime, even accounting for flights and commuting, and even if you rent a hotel when you get up there, you got a lot of room to travel back to your former state and still sit on significant savings. You know, this is the reason why a lot of people say that they don't leave high-tax states. A lot of people don't like it, but ultimately a lot of people can't get up the initiative to move. But I want to tell you guys that unless somebody gets the initiative to move, then these numbers are only going to get more. They're taking 5 to 10% right now, but if people just say that I'm not moving no matter what, it's going to be 15 or 20 or 25. So it's not only thinking about yourself, think about the other people in your state. If you keep paying, then the taxes are going to keep coming. So I feel that if you can get the courage to do this, then it's going to be something good, not only for you, but for everybody in the state.
That's true, and then you could always have them move with you.
Exactly. If you can convince people to move with you, then multiple $3 million in your family are going to be, you know what I mean? Like, the effects of this could be really huge if you can convince your family to move too.
A lot of people feel like as a citizen, it's their duty and it's a moral duty that they should pay their taxes, right?
I personally think so, and I'll tell you why. You know, we do live in a democracy, but the reality is we have very limited power for our votes. I mean, unless the election was decided by one vote, your vote essentially doesn't matter, unless the election was decided by one vote, which it never is. However, I will say the kind of vote that really does matter is voting with your feet. If you vote with your feet and enough people like you leave California, eventually they're going to have to make a change. So if you want positive things to happen, if you want positive change to come to these high-tax states, then this is more than just about saving money personally. This is about making things better for everybody. If you do have an income like this, I want you to think about that side as well. You're not only doing good for yourself, you're doing good for the world by doing this.
All right, Dan, so what should all of our future CEOs out there do then?
Okay, so I have a hidden agenda with this video, which is that I want to save people in high-tax states. So what I'm going to do for this video is I'm going to put my own money in advertising this in the 3 states I feel are the most egregious tax offenders: California, New York, and Illinois. And using the power of AdWords technology, we can target this specifically to the demographic of the top 10% of earners. So we're going to advertise this video and make people aware of how they're slaves to state taxes and how they're making a much bigger impact on them than they previously thought. If this video helped you out, and you want to support this advertising campaign, what I want you to do is click the link below or tap the link, the annotation on this video, and donate to our Patreon. 100% of the money donated to our Patreon we will use to advertise this video further and to educate people about the true effect of state taxes. So if this helped you out, go to our Patreon now and donate, and we really appreciate it.
So we'll see you next time.
See you guys in the next video.
Bye.